Germany made its mark and market on the world with its machinery and automobiles. Today, it is hard to imagine such products without software. Yet the complexity has risen dramatically since software becomes a core component in such products. Manufacturers of such digital physical products face major challenges during development and production, often risking investment and delaying time to market, thus harming competitiveness and all the stuff. Um, what are the two biggest blockers from your perspective as expert? What do you think about that?
When we have products that include hardware and software,
Yeah.
many times people apply an agile method and aggressive lean software thinking and lean design thinking to the software side, and software starts to deliver much faster than the hardware. That's actually not a bad step one, as long as we make sure the software doesn't have to wait on the hardware. We establish an interface and we upgrade continuously on the same hardware or similar hardware. The problem comes where people view hardware and software as inseparable, and the software simply waits instead of deploying on a previous version of the hardware or on an interface or simulation of the hardware. That would be the worst outcome, and we see it often. So let's try to avoid that worst case. But there's an even better case, and that's where the hardware also speeds up, which is absolutely possible, but most people haven't taken the big step yet. Here's what the big step is. Hardware for a while has been organized by sending out requests for proposal to multiple vendors for different areas of the product. So let's imagine an industrial robot. And there's a supplier for the enclosures, the dust shroud around the robotic arm and structure and the footing. Then there's the ball joints, these big structural pieces of metal to hold all the weight that the industrial robot is going to push against and the torque. Typically, RFPs sent to another supplier. Then the actuators, the actual robotic muscle, and then the electronics. And then you have the software team that says, well, I need to know which electronics, and the electronics team wants to know which ball joint, and they even want to know the shape of the enclosure and the dust shroud. So everybody waits on each other. That's the worst case, right?
Yeah.
Well, the better case is the software team says, look, the electronics are going to be at least this fast, and they're going to use this processor family, and they'll have at least this much RAM. Build and deploy every day, 8-hour or less test and deployment cycles on your simulation
Every
or
day.
on actual, at least every day. I hope every 45 minutes. So they go through test and deploy in fast cycles, agile, right? I mean, the whole idea is you release as many times as possible so you get really good at testing and releasing, because that's when we learn the most. Also, the engineer's skill goes up the fastest, and the engineers learn how to add automation the most quickly to their development process. So that's the middle one. You sped up software by not having to wait on the ball joint provider, the enclosure and dust shroud provider, the linear actuator, the robotic muscle provider, or even the electronic circuit board provider. Even better is you go to the ball joint provider and say, would you have a team of 3, 4, or 5 people with the equipment to make your ball joint? Would you relocate inside the supplier that makes the dust shrouds, the externals? And they say, of course not. That's insane. And you say, what if we fund your team of 3, 4, or 5 people for 2 years? And it's your job to make a better fit ball joint set as fast as you can. And they say, well, actually, we do make ball joint sets multiple times a day, but you have a queue 6 months ahead of you for everyone else. And you say, what if I like buy out this team of 3, 4, or 5 people? And this is what companies like Tesla do. They integrate their suppliers. And actually, Toyota used to do this. If you visit Toyota City, it's full of suppliers that used to have the means of production. Now it's mostly offices for the suppliers that farm out their production.
Yeah.
But Toyota used to do this. This was actually part of the Toyota model previously. So, of course, some modern companies that really want to go fast are doing it. And you combine the various suppliers. And here's what does happen. if you actually look at the time it takes to make a piece of hardware, like to physically make it, not to have the meetings about it, not to schedule it, not to wait in line, not to sign and respond to RFPs, but actually the time to make the hardware, it's typically less than an hour.
Wow.
Sometimes it's 4 hours. It depends on the thing you're making, of course, but very often the actual physical material moving it into the shape you need is an hour, sometimes 15 minutes, especially injection molding, which people think the lead time for that's a year. Well, what's that? It's something that's the shape of what you want, which I mean, you could 3D print if the 3D print was high enough temperature tolerance, and then a vacuum on top to bulk melt the plastic is usually what's vacuum formed. You can do that in less than a day, but we're waiting in queue for these suppliers 6 months for their other contracts, or we're sending them change requests and asking for them to figure out our design that we made in house. And we say, here, we've designed this perfectly in a piece of software you don't normally use. Take this in the line with all your other contracts and then make our vacuum formed headlight lens. And they say, okay, it'll be 3 years. Well, how long does it actually take to vacuum form a headlight lens? Actually, a few seconds. That's why it's used in production. Well, how long does it take to make the fixture, the shape of the headlight lens? Depends how you do it, but many times it can be done in less than a day.
Okay.
So the actual hardware speed, the limit is quite fast, often less than a day, sometimes less than an hour. So the possibility that some companies are already doing is combining the different hardware suppliers in physically the same big room and saying, try to make one today. It's like a hackathon, but for hardware. And of course, the first one is not beautiful, but the third one often is. So you have this hackathon run, and some companies even have the software team in the same room. And this gets back to what we used to think Agile was,
Yeah.
like extreme programming before that.
Yeah.
And it gets us to some really quick timelines. Um, and it's the same thinking we always had. Frequent releasing, the teams that engineer also do their own tests, cross-functional teams instead of teams of masters of business administration separated from teams of tests, separated from mechanical engineers, often even in different companies and different offices. So combining cross-functional teams, having them test their own work, even the hardware gets fast. So you have these cyber physical products where at least don't make the software wait on the hardware,
Yeah.
but definitely possible to accelerate the hardware too, and then bring them back together, actually merge them again.
Yeah.
So separating the software and the hardware isn't the fastest. The fastest is bring them back together.
Yeah. To be fair enough, do you think those major challenges are typically typical for Germany, or you see it in other countries worldwide?
So when you and I work with German companies, where's the stuff managed? Where's the stuff engineered? Where's it made? I mean, we work in German companies, you and I, and much of the development is happening in Hungary. The manufacturing is in the Czech Republic. Some of the manufacturing is in China. Some of the management is in Japan. Many times the top management is from Sweden. So I can't say in any of these companies it's a Swedish problem or a Czech problem or a Hungarian problem or an American problem or a Chinese
Okay.
problem or a German problem. These companies, wherever they pay their income taxes, maybe it's Germany. Well, they pay everywhere, right? I mean, these are global companies. Wherever they advertise they're from, German engineering or not, these are global companies with global challenges.
Okay. Um, you will visit Germany in June, and in the first week of June, you will have two trainings. One of them will be in Karlsruhe, and the first one will be in Munich, and the second one will be in Karlsruhe, and you will have many public sessions meeting other developers and companies. Um, is that a topic and discussion with your students in your two trainings and in the public sessions what you have?
I'm hoping the participants are going to guide us. I have prepared 12 modules, and how much time we spend on each one, ideally, is in responsive to which companies make their presence the largest in each session. whether it's short budgeting. I mean, how do you budget 5 years in advance for an
Yeah.
agile project? Or whether it's ASPICE compliance. How do we demand ASPICE compliance from our suppliers? Or as a supplier, if ASPICE is part of our contract, how do we do the V model when we're trying to make daily iterations in software or hardware? Let's flex where we spend our time based on who's in the room. But
All right.
definitely, these are topics that I will at least introduce, and how deep we go will depend on what the people that are in the room, the majority of them, need. What I can say is I've designed, built, tested, and deployed rogue legal cars in less than a week. I've been doing it since 2006. This is definitely possible. So if people want to know, can it be done? Yes. And then if people want details, we can go as deep in whichever part is helpful for them. So for the people who are coming,
Yeah.
what I'll say is, please think, what area are you interested to modify? Yeah,
Okay.
hearing the art of the possible is exciting, but think, are you interested to modify your contracts? Or are you interested to modify where the engineering takes place? Or are you interested to modify budget length? Think which area is comfortable or exciting to modify. And then make sure you communicate that to me when you arrive. And we'll focus there on so you're ready to make the change that has the impact you want.
I like that, Joe. That will be individual talks with you, individual trainings with you, with your participants. I'm happy to see you in June and see you. Have a nice day in Japan with your friends and family, and we'll see each other in some weeks. Ciao.
Todd, wonderful. See you soon
Thank
in
you, man.
Germany. Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye.